All right. Hey guys, hope you guys had a good weekend. Hope you guys, if you haven't finished the assignment yet, hope you do so very, very quickly. Um, and that was on classical conditioning. We're gonna get to operant conditioning today and knock out operant conditioning, hopefully 15 minutes or less. And then after that, I think we move into to memory. Okay, so all right, operant conditioning. Whereas as classical conditioning was more about reflexes, um, reactions, emotions. Operant conditioning is going to be more about behavior, very voluntary behavior. Okay, so again, the dog didn't choose to salivate, right? Little Albert didn't really choose to cry. It was conditioned, right? Emotions and reactions or reflexes. Operant conditioning is going to be more intentional. Another way to say intentional would be voluntary. So it's going to be more voluntary responses, voluntary behaviors. Okay. So operant conditioning, they define that video process by which voluntary responses are learned as a result of consequences. Now, there's two types of consequences. We'll get into those. But you got reinforcements, which can be positive, negative, and you have punishments. Okay. A term they threw out was instrumental learning. That's again from Thorndike. We saw him with the Premack principle. But Thorndike, building blocks, this instrumental, or not Premack principle, I'm sorry, the law of effect. Anyways, rewind, instrumental learning, Thorndike. This is going to be the building blocks for what B.F. Skinner will do with operational conditioning. Again, law of effect, that's basically another way of saying like trial and error. Remember, Thorndike would throw cats in a maze and would time them, and they would progressively get faster and faster getting to the end. Now, were they really learning? Were they really being conditioned? Or is it just trial and error, right? You mess up certain times and you kind of learn not to do that again, right? So the law of effect, trial and error with cats in the maze. Again, B.F. Skinner will kind of enhance that. He will kind of build upon that. So you have Skinner. Skinner's all about consequences and reinforcements. Please, 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 operant conditioning, no consequences and reinforcements. Those will impact voluntary behavior, right? So how can you manipulate behavior? Well, you can positively and negatively reinforce it, or you can punish certain behavior, right? And either way is going to result in increasing the likelihood of desired behavior or decreasing the likelihood of undesired behavior. Excuse me. Okay, so behavior positively reinforced, we repeat that, right? So when we are told we did something good, when we are told we did something right, when we got a gold star or we got high praise, right? We are very, very likely to repeat that. When you're punished, you are obviously less likely to repeat that, okay? So anytime little kid is spanked, right? Anytime little kid is put in timeout, you are less likely to repeat that behavior. So the Skinner box, right, is what he used. He always puts those lab rats in. It's also called an operant chamber. We've kind of nicknamed it a Skinner box. Remember, it allows him to have great experimental control. It allows him to eliminate a lot of outside variables. So he studies conditioning. He studies reinforcement using these chambers, these Skinner boxes. So remember, it's as simple as putting a rat in there, and that rat has access to a lever. The rat has no idea what a lever is, right? The rat doesn't know about pushing or pulling that lever. But when the rat eventually does, engage the lever, a food pellet comes out, and the rat gets a meal. Okay, so over time, that rat will learn to very quickly, very intentionally, very voluntarily go to that lever as soon as he or she is put into the box if they want food, right? So because they are being positively reinforced, boom, here's your food pellet. It is impacting their behavior, okay? You can do the same thing with a shock or a loud noise. If you want them to leave a certain area of the box, or if you want them to stay away from, right, to ignore a certain area of the box, then that box could have a loud noise every time they step on it, or that box could shock them every time they step on it, right? And again, that is reinforcing to them. You could look at that as a punishment, but that is reinforcing to them. Don't do that, right? Eliminate that behavior. They even got really, really tricky with could you make the rat wait to pull that lever until a light bulb came on over the lever, right? So as that rat runs to the lever right away, like it always has, pulls that lever expecting food pellet to come out. It doesn't come out. Why? Because the light bulb on top hadn't gone off yet. So could you, higher order conditioning, higher level thinking, could you put a secondary conditioning aspect in there, right? In which now the rat would have to learn to wait for that light to turn on and then go pull the lever, right? All right, primary reinforcers, stimulus that is naturally rewarding, like food, right? Like fresh air, something to drink when you're thirsty, relief from pain, right? So those are primary reinforcers. They're just natural. To us today, probably more effective as a reinforcer would be secondary reinforcers. That is your trophy, right? That is your gold medal. That is your A+. That is your high praise, congratulations, and stuff like that. Money, right? So secondary reinforcer, that's gonna be something more tangible, more superficial. Okay, so operant conditioning stimulus, voluntary behavior, consequence, future behavior. So a consequence, again, that can be positive or negative reinforcement, that can be punishment. All of those will impact future behaviors. If you have been reinforced, positive or negative, the voluntary behavior will increase. Okay, ready? One more time. If you have been reinforced, whether positive or negative, the voluntary behavior will increase. If you have been punished, usually punishment is going to be, you're going to think of it as negative, but if you have been punished, the voluntary behavior will decrease, right? So any example that shows the behavior increasing, that's reinforcement. The behavior decreasing, that's going to be punishment. Okay, so positive reinforcement, adding something after behavior that is more likely to continue that behavior, right? So again, adding pay if you did your chores, right? Giving someone money. Adding praise or congratulations or a round of applause when you do something well, that will continue that behavior, right? Negative reinforcement, subtracting or removing a stimulus after that voluntary behavior, that is very likely for it to occur again. Sorry, I wrote real small. So again, removing something, subtracting something, you're going to think of that as punishment, right? And I see how that works, but negative is anytime you remove something, right? Let's see here. Positive reinforcement. Allie raises a hand in class and she answers a question, and I say, "Great job, Allie. Great, intellect that you display there. Thank you for being respectful, raising your hand." The next time I pose a question, because Allie, got a couple of compliments and Allie felt smart and she felt respected, Allie's very likely to repeat that behavior, right? She raised her hand. Her behavior was rewarded, and so it's likely to continue. Negative reinforcement, you have headache, you take ibuprofen, and the headache goes away, right? Parents say, "Clean your room," you don't do it, they take away a different chore. Oh, sorry. Been a rough day, I guess. Parents say, "Clean your room," you do it, right? And they take away another chore, right? So they say, "Clean your room," you do it the first time and you do it great, and they go in there, they check the room, they're very impressed. Oh, all right, you don't have to do the dishes tonight, right? You don't have to vacuum the living room. So they take something away, right? That will increase the behavior or continue the behavior of cleaning your room. Let's see here, going on. Positive punishment, adding something after voluntary behavior. Again, punishment means it is less likely to continue. So again, adding a spanking, adding a detention, adding a timeout, adding 5 minutes in the corner, right? So those are examples of positive punishment in which you add something to the situation. You again spank them, add a punishment, and that makes their behavior less likely to continue. Negative punishment, that is subtracting or removing something after behavior that you don't want to continue. And so I will, to punish a student, I will remove their lunchtime. They have to spend with me, right? I took away their 30 minutes with their friends. Maybe back in the day when you weren't allowed to go out to recess, right? Nothing was added, just something was taken away from you. So time loss of, you lose curfew, right? So if you didn't come home on time, they take away 30 minutes. So now instead of that 11 o'clock curfew, you have to be back by 10:30. Lose playing time. We do that with Emmy. Exam tip here: any FRQ that you come across, if they're talking about behavior and that behavior is voluntary, that behavior is intentional, that will be operant conditioning, okay? So any behavior that is more natural, more instinctive, more reflexive, that is going to be classical conditioning, okay? Behavior increases, that means it's reinforcement, right? Behavior decreases, that means it's punishment. Behavior can be unchanged as well, right? So it'd be neither. Was something added, right? So again, example, was something added? That is going to be positive. It could be positive punishment. It could be positive reinforcement. Was something taken away? It's going to be negative punishment, or it's going to be negative reinforcement, okay? Flip the page here. Okay, so escape conditioning, a couple new terms here. Escape conditioning, voluntary behavior causes an aversive stimulus to stop, which causes the person to repeat that behavior in the future. Okay, so you experience your voluntary behavior, right? That causes something you don't like to stop, right? You will repeat that in the future. So a couple examples that I have, I don't know if they're great. Maybe you've heard about drinking pickle juice when you're cramping. Right, so yeah, maybe you've seen this on the sideline in games where you've seen football players or basketball players actually drinking pickle juice, right? So that's a saying. When they drink pickle juice because they're cramping and they're in pain, and it stops the cramping, you know, the very next time and next several times they cramp during a game, they're probably going to drink pickle juice, right? Parents nagging you about cleaning. Again, what's the best way to get them to stop getting on your case about cleaning, to stop nagging you? Well, it's to go clean, right? And you'll remember that and you'll do it the next time. If you're in a cold room, what do? Right? If you are tired of being cold, if it's making you uncomfortable, you hate being cold, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to grab a blanket, you're going to grab a sweatshirt, right? So voluntary behavior, stop something you don't like, means you'll probably repeat that in the future, okay? Avoidance, this is more preventative. This is more preemptive, okay? So avoidance conditioning, it's the same kind of thing. Voluntary behavior prevents an aversive stimulus from happening, which causes that person to repeat the behavior. Okay, so this time, let's say again, an athlete doesn't want to cramp, right? This time, they will they will avoid cramping by preparing ahead of time. So now I got a race coming up. I got a football game coming up. I'm going to make sure I'm drinking my Gatorade. I'm going to make sure I'm drinking my water. That way I don't have to go to the pickle juice, okay? I'm going to avoid that cramping. Avoid an X in a public place. So again, you dip into behind, I don't know, clothes rack or whatever because you see your ex walking. Maybe some of you guys have done this, but you avoid saying certain words that are tough to pronounce. That way you don't have any kind of humiliation or anything like that, right? So you avoid it ahead of time. You clean your room before your parents can even nag, right? You don't want your parents to nag. That's aversive. You hate that. It annoys you, right? So instead of waiting for them to nag and then clean your room, you clean your room before that happens, right? You avoid that situation. Discriminative stimulus, a stimulus that indicates if a voluntary behavior is demonstrated and reinforced, will or will not result. Okay, and we've kind of already talked about that, but discriminative just means the researcher can tell if something, a very specific stimulus, is causing you to cry, is causing you to salivate, is causing you to pull that lever, right? And if they throw other stimuli at you and it doesn't have the same response, then that's discriminative, right? You know it was the lever. You know it was the white rat. You know it was the bell for Pavlov's dog. Shaping, continuously reinforcing desired behavior successively, closer and closer. Okay, so I've used this with you guys for a couple of years, use it with the Psych kids again. So Allie, I asked a question in class, Allie wants to raise, boom, she blurts out an answer and say, Allie, thank you for participating. Your answer was right, but remember, you have to sit quietly. You have to raise your hand. You have to wait to be called on, and then you can answer. I asked another question. Allie raises her hand and blurts out the answer. Allie, thank you again. I love how you want to always contribute in class. Your answer was right again, but remember, you have to wait to be called on before you can say your answer. And finally, I throw an answer or a question out there. Allie sits quietly. She raises her hand. She waits for me to call on. I go crazy. Woohoo! Streamers, gold stars, everything for Allie. I shaped her, each instance by instance, closer and closer, successively, until she got the entire procedure down. Premack's principle, using a preferred fun behavior in order to increase the likelihood of their less desired behavior. Okay, so this is really simple stuff. So Premack principle, right? This is basically bribing. You don't want to do something, but I want you to do it. So I will tell you, hey, if you do this, you'll get such and such. Okay, so making you do something less desirable, less preferable by dangling something preferable in front of you, right? So basically bribing. If you want that cookie, if you want that piece of pie after dinner, you've got to finish your plate. You've got to eat all those veggies, right? You know, some of you guys probably don't want to prepare for your AP exams. You don't want to put in the amount of time you should be putting it in. So if you want that college credit, right? If you want that semester college credit, you will study for the AP exam. You know, if you want to go hang out with the kids in the neighborhood, if you want to go hang out with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you will finish that homework as soon as you get home from school, right? And a really common example of this, and a lot of psychology teachers use a really common example that you find in nature. Premack principle would be dogs playing fetch, right? They really want to chase balls. They really want to run in the grass. They really want to go get that Frisbee, whatever it is. But what happens when they bring it back to you? They don't always want to give you the ball, right? Sometimes you have to grab it out of their mouth. Sometimes you have to chase them around a little bit before they actually give it to you. So if they want to go catch it again, if they want to go run again, they will have to drop that ball. They will have to give up that ball. All right, guys, take some notes. Finish your homework. I might be sending something out about a Zoom session tomorrow. Might take about 30 minutes of your time. All right, see you guys.